you are probably going
done. I had a note on my notepad to do that. Thank you very much, Aaron, for the reminder. Okay, cool. So the preamble was the same as the what was in the email last night. So we're all good in there. Okay, cool. So leading indicators of churn. The past 60 days have changed pretty much most everything for us. So who has something they'd like to share around this topic, or another question related to this as far as how to do this in a more efficient or more effective way?
I can jump in if it's fine.
Yeah,
okay.
Elizabeth, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So it's really interesting for me because I just joined a company during confinement. So it's a brand new challenge. And we don't have so much indicators that enable us to track the usage on our platform. And therefore, what really helped us actually to identify indicator of churn where we contacted our users with saying, hey, how are you dealing with the COVID situation and how can we help? And we figured out that people do not take any, they are not as sensitive as before, and they tell us right away, hey, it's not time, we want to churn, that's what we do. And so I would say that the leading indicator for us right now is really calling the clients right away so we can take the temperature and evaluate if they want to churn or stick with us or just or upsell, which can also be an opportunity.
And that's really interesting, Elizabeth. Thank you for sharing that. When you say that, they're in a different place now than they were before, can you share a little bit more about what you mean and what actually transpired aside from just time?
Sure. I'm based in France, so the situation is a bit particular there in France, in Paris. We have some companies that are struggling with partial activities. So, for instance, we deal with a lot of retailers and their shops are closed for at least 3 to 4 weeks. So, but we still have them as clients because they committed for a year, maybe 2. So we take benefit of this. I'm sorry for my English if it's not clear. But yes, this is a real opportunity for us to call our users because they don't have to deal with the daily activity. We call them and we say, hey, let's benefit of this time off. Do you want to move forward? Do you want to move with the adoption, etc.? Because there is these partial activities. But most of the time they can say, we need to cut our costs because we are aware that it's going to be a real recession, or we have other priority, etc. Is that clear?
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you very much for the additional context there. Who else has commentary on what it's been like on looking at the leading indicators, causes of churn, and how things have changed in the last 60 days?
I could go next.
Go ahead, Diana.
I'm Diana. I work at an early stage startup, and similar to Elizabeth, I just started working at this company almost 2 months ago. So on my end, I've just been collecting news articles around which companies have been affected, and then just comparing that to the customers that we have. That way we can get in front of, just knowing where they're at in terms of layoffs and things like that. What we found at the very beginning when this started, where everybody, had to do self-isolation, offices closing down, is that people weren't too reactive when we sent them a message. And so instead of us sending out a message, we just monitored from the benchline sort of approach. And we're seeing that, with the customers that there has been an article where there are layoffs going on. We're trying to get them on the phone as quickly as possible to see, what can we do to help them out, especially the ones that have renewals coming up.
Nice, I like that, being able to gather tons of intel about what's going on without having to necessarily talk, or before you have an opportunity to talk with your customer. Very cool. Who else would like to share on this topic?
I can share a little bit about what we're doing. So my name is Amanda. I work for an organization called Eagle Point Software. We're a learning and productivity platform in the architectural, engineering, and construction space. So I think like many organizations, we're seeing our clients go through a challenge, not only to move their teams remotely, struggling with things like infrastructure, VPN challenges, but also having organizations go through furloughs and layoffs. So generally, leading indicators for churn for our organization are compiled health score surrounding things like usage, responsiveness to communications, attendance in meetings and emails and such. But what we're seeing now as leading indicators of churn are just more kind of those soft interactions of maybe your usage is down, but if you're struggling with just the sheer challenge of getting users remote and getting them productive remote because they don't have the right hardware, or your VPN is doesn't have enough bandwidth, then they're not going to be learning, or they're not going to be leveraging the platform. What we're seeing is our clients are kind of falling into two very distinct, very different camps. Either they're just not using the platform at all and everything's shut down, or they're absolutely 100% full bore in on learning right now because they're having trouble in other areas. And then there are parts of the world as well that if users furloughed, they cannot be working, but they can be learning. And so we're able to kind of find a space there to support our clients while their users are furloughed. So just kind of being a learning and productivity platform, we're able to serve our clients that way a little bit. But I'm just finding that the leading indicators of churn are not so set in stone or so easily kind of measured. They're more soft of, I've had a really great call with this client this month, so I think they're okay.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Interesting that, customers are grouping themselves into buckets, right? And those buckets now, today, are going to be different than they were just a few weeks or even a few months ago. Has anybody else seen situations like that where there are clear differences in how your groups of customers are reacting and taking a specific approach with each one of those?
I can jump in for a second.
Sure thing, Eric.
Nice to see everybody. I think it's important to keep what vertical you sell into and where your customer lives in this whole mess very much front of mind. And I think tying into some sort of Google alert or RSS feed or something to keep you up to date with furloughs, layoffs, et cetera, is great. But like the other day, I narrowly stepped in it, or almost stepped in it, narrowly missed stepping in it. I was going to reach out to somebody. We're, like a lot of companies, we're looking at trying to pull renewals closer and reaching out to our customers. And what we normally would do maybe with 90 days out, we're doing with 150 days out, and just trying to really get a good lay of the land for what to anticipate so we can predict our own growth and projections moving forward. And I was about to send this email with like usage, adoption statistics, engagement metrics. And then I thought, I better just like Google a little bit about what has been happening in this person's world. And their product is dead center fighting on the front lines of COVID, And so I was so close to sending such a completely tone deaf, out of touch, reaching out to my client email. And what I ended up sending was just, hey, how are you doing? I can see that you guys must be absolutely the house is on fire right now, I'm sure. If we can help, we're here. If we can't, don't reply. I'll reach back out in 30 days and see if things have changed. So just keeping that in mind, because we sell into so many different verticals, or our customers service so many different verticals at Success Hacker, that we really have to be specific customer to customer. Some of them are like, yeah, we're ready to talk strategically and lean in because we did have furloughs, and yeah, to the point earlier, they can't work, but they can learn. So let's double down. And we have like a lot of usage and engagement statistics going through the roof. And then others are like, dude, like I can't even think about this right now, And so being really specific, you have to get really granular. I think you can't just take maybe our historical wider strokes around how you're going to reach out to re-engage or even engage with customers, talk about renewals, or talk about anything, frankly, right now, depending on where they're living in this mess. So just a little, my almost mistake. It was so funny. I had this whole thing that I was like, I'm going to save that as a draft. And then I Googled and I was like, oh my God, that would have been so bad. So keep that in mind. Little advice.
Good call, Aaron. Nice job on narrowly avoiding the mix there. Jim Jones, I'm curious, what's top of mind for you when looking at either health or risk or the buckets your customers follow? What's going on in your world?
Excuse me. Well, so a couple things. We haven't seen a real degradation yet in, or let me say it differently. We haven't seen an increase in churn, which is good. I think we're in call centers. We're kind of baked into the overall cost of operation, and we provide critical reports coming out of, Cisco or other telephone systems. So it's really, the cost benefit is there. Somebody, and I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, but somebody made the comment about, I think it was Elizabeth, but about customers saying, we're busy, we can't talk to you right now, we got things going on. So we're not seeing that as a proxy or an indicator of churn, but we are seeing it as an indicator in the drop in future sales. April and May pipeline right now is super light because a bunch of stuff is super light. It's down significantly, let me say, because we're just seeing a lot of stuff pushed out until there's more certainty in the market. But the customers that are with us are sticking with us.
That's fantastic to hear, Jim. In this time, like never before has there been such a bright light shined on the actual customer base, right? We all as CS leaders know that that's the most important place and the most important thing to focus on in a growing recurring revenue business. Yep. However, it often is not the case. And this has been an opportunity where the light has shined directly on it. I imagine is that what you're finding inside, Jim?
Yes, very, very much so. There and a lot of our customers are either financial services or healthcare. So healthcare, it's just off the charts busy right now. We kind of know not even to call them right now, but the FinServ, they're struggling with how to work remote. And doing business continuity plans and stuff like that. So I think there's risk in the future, but they don't want to interrupt anything. And one of the important things we do is help those companies measure quality of service and then measure staff performance and right size staff and all that. Those are all very necessary things in times of working at home and increased call loads, but we're in a very specific niche that I realize doesn't apply to everybody else. So we kind of have rich man's problems right now.
Well, hey, there's still problems nonetheless.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jim.
Yeah, you bet.
Hey, Chris Jones, CJ, what's going on, man? I love your background with the, is it the zombie apocalypse going? Is that what that is?
Yeah, it's The Walking Dead. I mean, we're almost there. We're almost there.
We're almost there. Yeah, we're almost there. Well, tell us about what's going on in your world when it comes to risk, when it comes to forecasting, and when it comes to like health. Like, how are you and your customers working through this?
Oh, well, I work for SumTotal and Skillsoft. We're a talent development and learning platform, mostly in the business area. We don't really touch schools and stuff. But one of the things that we have noticed is, like Aaron says, you have to kind of pivot somewhat and become more of a support person for some of your customers. I had a customer call this morning. They are actually in the homeowners and insurance space, which they said this whole period has been like phenomenal for them because people are at home and now they're looking at what's happening. But the way in which we used to support them has completely changed. It's more of it's a sympathetic air that we've been doing with a lot of our customers. You're talking to them, just understanding that, we're all going through this. How are you guys dealing with it? And we're keeping our eyes on, our renewals. And I think what has happened with us, I've seen it with two of my customers recently, is that because we have been somewhat sympathetic, providing that support for them, that they have reached out to us and say, hey, you know what, we want to make sure that we secure the budget. The next two renewals, we don't want you guys to fall by the wayside. So they've seen us as more than just a product or a service. They're now actually seeing us as a partner in whatever they're going through. One of our companies, one of our customers is in the food and beverage space, which, you know, has been taking a big hit. And something we did was very simple. We looked at our employees and say, listen, if you ever, you know, have to, you know, interact with any of these customers, just take a picture, post it on social media, show them that, you know, the smallest way that we can support them, we're still supporting them. So it has helped in terms of the way they've looked at us as an organization and the support we've provided them.
Love that. I mean, yeah, taking that human first approach, lending an ear, not worrying about, you know, what's in it for you at the time, and then it comes back in spades with the trust built, relationship strengthened. That's really awesome. Nice work. And I love also the social promotion to help, you know, to help them. And I know you guys are doing that genuinely, but it also in the long term will help benefit the business. Who's got anything around, you know, the specific plays, if you will, that you've deployed as a result of all the things that your customers are going through? And we all had our engagement life cycles before. We did business reviews and onboardings and trainings and so on and so forth. But who's changed, you know, some of that either slightly or drastically in light of this, knowing that the way you operated with your client before may not necessarily be the appropriate way to operate now, even though you still have to accomplish a lot of the same objectives to get them to value, get them to continue getting value. We'd love to hear any thoughts on changes made to engagements and kind of strategies that you use with your customers to help reduce the risk in the long term. And I'm going to call on somebody. How about Andreas? Oh, yeah. Oh, Eddie? Yeah, go.
Yeah,
Okay,
I can
Eddie.
go.
Cool.
Hi, it's Eddie. I work for Intello, candidate sourcing engagement solution, focused on customers trying to hire. So clearly COVID has impacted our company in very significant ways. To the question though, we're fortunate in that last year we merged with another company that allowed us to focus on not just top of the funnel sourcing, but also post-apply candidate engagement. So one of the things we've done, I forgot who mentioned about pivoting, is we basically shifted to more so we recognize you're not hiring anymore. It's tone deaf, whoever mentioned that, to try to ask about what your hiring goals are for the rest of the year. Let's talk about the people you are going through the processing right now, whether it's through inbounds or referrals or whatever, and help you that way. So that's one thing we've started doing. We've also started, frankly, shutting off marketing. I think marketing-led messaging can be viewed in different ways during these times. So basically all customer engagement is coming from customer success, sometimes sales, but mostly customer success. And the idea being that it's not about trying to sell you anything right now, but more so, how can we help? What are the different ways we can add value? And fortunately, again, for Intello, we have different solution offerings that allow us to engage our customers beyond what we historically have done. So it's unclear right now whether it's going to work. Obviously, it's a work in progress. And to that point, we're A/B testing a lot of our communications as well, literally trying one that's more empathetic and one that's more kind of info fact-based. So just seeing sort of what works and trying to be as adaptable as possible.
Very cool. Eddie, did you go through that acquisition during this time, or did that happen a while
pre-COVID? Yeah, it was last year.
Okay, cool, got it. But I love the thought, love the sentiment that, you know, the main thing that you typically focus on just isn't really relevant right now, and also the point about how your marketing has completely shifted and all your communication is coming through the CS channel, which is going to be a more sympathetic, empathetic piece, and still finding how can you add value with the other stack of things that you guys offer and provide. That's really, really fantastic and quick pivot. Cool. Let's see here. Andreas, I was going to call on you before. What is going on in your world? Tell us a little bit about the industry that you serve, and then what's going on in your world when it comes to risk and health and, you know, the engagements that you have with your customers.
Yeah, so we're a digital asset management company called Open Asset. We work also within architecture, engineering, construction businesses. Something that we've sort of changed more is leaned on more content reach outs with our CSMs. So in the very beginning, we saw a lot of people were avoiding calls or not really wanting to get on calls. So we were just sort of reaching out with like, okay, here's some tips on how you can use our product to enable more easily working from home and to support your staff. Let us know if you're ready to get on a call. We still are doing executive business reviews, but we are starting off all of them with sort of asking what's been the impact on you, what's been the impact on your business, and then sort of framing the EBR a little bit differently based off of that.
Good. That's awesome. I love the use of the content there that you mentioned, that there's, not everybody was ready to take a call, or they're going through a lot of other things, but there's a lot of useful information that you and your product and your service have, that if you can package that up in a meaningful way, that ultimately you can deliver value even without having to necessarily be on the phone. Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we also started pinpointing our adopting clients, the ones that we think are adopting. We've actually said that they're more at risk because it's easier for them to just pull the plug. They're not as invested in it. And so that's another one that we've actually doubled down on, making sure that they're pushing engagement, pushing the use of it, of our product during this time in a meaningful way. I think that's something we've learned as well.
Got it. Who's got a challenge in this area? Something you struggle with, not exactly sure how to address it. Would love a group of experts to weigh in and just provide some perspective. Who's struggling in this area? The forecast, the risk, health score, anything, engagement even? And if nobody has any challenge, I'll ask the question a different way.
Hey Nils, I'm gonna jump in, and I have to apologize ahead of time because I'm gonna break your original framework rule. So hi everyone, I'm Chris. Was formerly the president of user testing, and I've since left and started a company where we're actually building an AI-powered brain that helps you focus on work that matters for different departmental groups. One of the first ones that we're building is for CS. One of the things when I was at user testing, by the time we left, we were, $100 million plus company. And one of my frustrations about how we ran customer success, and I never got to implement this, which is why I'm breaking your rule here, Niels, is that what I always wanted to know as an executive, what we always wanted to know as an executive team was whether or not our customers believed that our product was solving a severe and ongoing problem.
Mm-hmm.
As CS people, we're really good at being empathetic and reaching out to our customers, but we don't do a very good job generally of documenting what customers are saying. And as a result, we didn't have a good sense of, do our customers on average feel like our product is a 9 out of 10 in terms of severity of problem? Do they expect to use it on a regular basis? And so when we had periods like this, and we had one of these in 2016 where the economy was looking like it might have started to slip a little bit, we didn't really have a good sense or a good way to gauge whether or not our customers were actually at risk, because we didn't know how they valued our platform. And so one of the things I wish I had done, and we're doing, we're early stage company right now at User Test at Enough Said, is doing either micro surveys or well-documented surveys as part of QBRs to track and measure how customers actually think about our product. And the other thing is, at user testing, we were selling to, almost all of our deals were with Fortune 500 companies. I mean, we were, by the time I left, we were 80+% enterprise in terms of sales. And you would think that companies like Amazon or Google or Verizon or Walmart would make buying decisions based on very well thought out ROI cases, but that's not actually how the buying decisions happened, even at multi-million-dollar deals. A lot of times it was, does the champion believe or feel like they're getting good value? And so we just, it was something that I think that we missed on. I think it's something as a CS industry, we can do a better job of kind of, as a team, as a department, we can do a better job of recording this information and then broadcasting it back out to our peers in, in sales and in marketing and in product. So anyhow, broke the rules there, but that's the one piece of feedback that I would share that I would have done differently today if I was still at user testing.
Understand. No, thank you for sharing that and the context of what it's like inside of an enterprise, level organization and what the buying cycle is really like. Jumping off of Chris's point there, I think is a great one around how to actually know that you are solving the problem, right? Not just that you have a good relationship and not just that they trust you or are, adding value in some form or fashion, but how do you know that your product and solution is actually solving their problem? We'd love to hear, anybody who feels like they have at least a decent control on this, or if you struggle with this, that's okay too. What's on the mind? How are you articulating this? How are you capturing that? Is it asking a question? Is it through a survey? Is it a gut feel check? What do you got? And
I'll share a story.
Yeah, Diana, go ahead.
That actually what Chris said resonates with me a lot. So earlier this week, I got on a call with another CSM that took over a customer, and then the person, that POC left, and now the director of IT jumped in and is looking at the account. And essentially that call was supposed to be like a QBR call. And essentially they were like, look, I don't know what the value is. Like, what are we doing here? What is the purpose of this? There's like this other tool that can do the same thing. And that made me think of what Chris was just saying right there. Mm-hmm. Like, you have to, it's like you have to make sure that the value is documented somewhere, or else, what's going to happen just because the POC thought it was valuable. Now you have someone that's coming in from higher up and doesn't even see the value.
And so, Dan, thank you for sharing that. In that instance, have you been able to? Were you able to overcome that situation, or was the CSM able to overcome, or what happened?
Yeah, well, it happened this week, and essentially, I was sitting on the call just shadowing, but essentially they asked for kind of like a proof of concept sort of approach again. And so we went back to the drawing board. But I think the biggest thing I walked away with was, we have to make sure that we know the value from the very beginning, and not just the value that the POC, you agree with them on, but also like the value that the stakeholders are going to need to show proof of when they're talking to leadership.
Yeah, great point. Ed, you had a similar or a share point of view?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, sorry, my video is not working, so I apologize for not showing my face, but I do exist.
No worries.
So I work at a company called Data Miner, and if you're not familiar with us, we're a real-time information platform. We deal with a lot of corporate risk situations, breaking events, breaking news. And so we've been pretty critical for our customers in this time. So we've had the benefit of obviously being really helpful and being very sticky in this situation. But one of the things, two things really that popped up for us that, understanding whether we're solving a problem or not. So one was, as the volume of information started increasing around coronavirus, people were just literally overwhelmed by it. And so in our minds, we're like, oh, we're helping you, we're giving you all this information, but they were like, no, we're getting way too much. It's just too much. We can't manage it all. How can you help us manage it all? So that's a problem. Great, you're getting information, but if you can't deal with the information, how are you going to actually do what you need to do with it? So we went back and had a lot of conversations and talked to our product team and turned around some features in the product pretty quickly, really in record time for us, in response to customers that we were actually solving this problem they were having with managing our content. And so that was really impactful for them. I think it really helped, from a churn perspective. I think this is a great step in the right direction, and they're going to hopefully remember this and appreciate that we did this. And then the other thing we did from a marketing standpoint, we had the benefit of having pretty much a whole new marketing team join us late last year, early this year, in a lot of ways. And one of the things they've been doing is again, we're real-time information. We've always kind of had we give you the information in real time, you do what you need to do with it. And we haven't necessarily provided a lot of insight after the fact. So we've been going back and building a lot of content that's been more insightful content on, here's what we've reported to you, here's what we've given you, here's how you can look at it in a way that will give you a retrospective view, but also help you understand what to look out for going forward. So those have been two things that we've been able to do. And obviously the customer success team has been leading into this process and really making sure this stuff gets out in front of our customers.
That's awesome. Thank you, Ed, for sharing that. The response, from being able to take feedback directly, have it translated to the product side, and then have product and Eng actually turn around the solution and be able to deliver that. I mean, that sounds like a perfect moment in the world of a CS leader. And so I'm glad you were able to capitalize on that. That's awesome.
You know, it was almost like a lightning strike situation that, you know, hopefully it'll strike again, but it was great to have it at the time.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cheryl, good to see you there. Wonderful to chat again. Would love to hear your thoughts on just, you know, in times like this, as we look at risk and forecasting and health, you know, what are the most important things that you're focused on, that we should be focused on? What's the latest with you?
Good to see you again, Nils. So, you know, I'm right now working with different companies, and they're all focused on really shifting how they're looking at customer health, just like everybody's been talking about, and how they can really translate the value that they're providing, and in a different way sometimes, because the way that they might have been talking about the value previously and some of the goals customers might have had previously aren't the same goals anymore. And so if you keep having sort of the same conversations, even if it's why somebody bought, then you're just kind of talking over them a little bit. So being able to step back and look at what's happening right there in their business, and how can they pivot so that they can then, you know, kind of talk to what's happening right now, has been pretty successful. And changing up success plans and resetting goals. That's a great time to come back and set those, you know, those common goals, because you might have set them before and now everything's changed. And this is a great opportunity to get back in touch with your customers and reassess and reset goals and get them on board with respect to what does it look like right now.
Yeah, I love that. You know, revisiting goals changed. Everybody's life has changed. Everybody's the markets have changed, and it's always important to reset and refocus. So appreciate that very much. And taking a look at how you do things just from a perspective of what exists today. One thing I'll add on a couple of points here around the, you know, getting caught with a transition to another point of contact, like Diana was saying, or like Ed was saying, we have somebody else come in, we had a relationship, and then it changes, right? You know, one of the most important things is like that isn't a punch in the gut moment, that there is some way to articulate, or has some way that has been articulated, what the value is along the chain. And that, you know, can be as simple as, you know, a one-pager describing the history of the account and what's happened that can be shared with them, or it might be as detailed as a more in-depth, let's bring you up to speed in a 90-minute session and we'll go deep kind of thing, right? But that ability to do that, as Diana was saying, you know, can be so impactful to be able to ensure the alignment with the new individual who's going to take over. So we've got about 3 minutes left here. I want to give you the heads up that when we go back into the main room, Jay's going to ask you 2 questions, and for anybody to volunteer and raise a hand to speak. First question, or 3 minutes left right now, as we saw from Jeff. First question is, what's the number one takeaway from today, right? Critically important. We've heard a lot of great perspectives from a lot of different leaders. And number 2 is, what is the next thing that you can put into action? So these forums are great. They're wonderful. We hear lots of different perspectives, but what's really important is that we take some learning, whether it was, you know, take away from here, a new idea you had, something that came directly from somebody else, or an adaptation of what someone was doing. A lot of great ideas here. What is it that you're going to take, and what are you going to actually put into action? So those will be the 2 things. I wanted to give you the heads up now to be able to think on that for the next couple minutes. We'll entertain a little bit more discussion, and then we'll bounce back into the main room. All right.
Niels, if I can just jump in for a second.
Sure, Chris.
Hi. Hi, Chris. Hi, everyone. Chris Mitchell here. Yeah, I just wanted to expand a little bit on some of the comments that were made there, and talking about delivering value and making sure you understand the goals and objectives of your customers. And one of the problems I've always seen in the past with a lot of CSMs is they focus totally on their direct customer, so the user of their platform, and they don't really get deep level penetration into the organization and drive up the value chain to understand their customers' line manager's goals and his directors' goals, and then all the way up through the business until you're actually really understanding the true business goals that need to come out of your platform. Because very often the goals from your direct user aren't in tune with the business, aren't in tune with the stakeholders necessarily. And to give an example of that, I used to be the VP of Customer Success for On24, MarTech webinar platform, very focused on demand generation. So in very simplistic terms, the marketing executive who's organizing the events might be interested in getting 100, 200, 300 bums on seats. But their boss actually couldn't give a damn how many people turn up. They want to make sure the right titles turn up. And actually, you know, so I don't care if there's 300, how many of those are actually VPs or directors or that kind of thing. And then when you go one line higher, actually, they don't care about that. They actually care about who of those are actually buying. I want to know who are actually buyers out of that lot. So as you see, the objective gets filtered and focused the higher up the value chain you get. So make sure you penetrate your organization and understand all the way up the value chain what those objectives are.
Love it, Chris. Well said. That example is absolutely perfect. You can hit it out of the park with the number of people attending, but if none of them were the right people, then the management doesn't care and you're going to lose ultimately in the end. Awesome. Love it. The note popped up, so we're going to be thrust back into the main room in just a second. Remember that 2 things to think about. Number 1, takeaway, and what are you going to put into action coming out of today's call? And I will see you all in just a minute back in the main room. Thanks so much for your participation today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nils.
About the breakout session concept, how it worked, and hopefully hear more. But to end today's session, since I was not able to go through all the breakout rooms, we thought it would be great to just try and get back together as a larger group. And so 2 of the questions that I wanted to pose out to the group, and anybody feel free to answer, but the first question is just, what was your one takeaway or one learning that you came away with from the session? And then maybe the second question to answer is, what is maybe an immediate step, or what is one action item that you feel like you're going to go implement within the next 7 days? So open that up to the group and see if there's anybody who'd like to share.
I can kick us off. We had Brian LaFall in our group from Looker, and he shared a really tactical sort of risk assessment summary that he was using. And I think one of the key points he made among many good ones was, are you able to identify quantitative leading indicators to have your first pass at your client list, you know, flagging at-risk accounts based on that, you know, quantitative data, and then have a CSM come in and provide some qualitative feedback about the health of the account. And so that concept in general, I think, was a great reminder to hear that. And I've been taking the qualitative approach so far during this because it's felt very reactive. And that's one thing I'm going to take away is overlay some quantitative leading indicators over my qualitative list and see if there are any discrepancies. So really appreciated Brian's share today.
Awesome. Anybody else have any examples? One takeaway, one action item?
Hi, this is Sharmila. I'll join in. So first, this is my first call, so thank you so much for everyone who's been sharing and discussing what's been going on. I work for LexisNexis, and I'm a CSM. Most of my clients are media clients, so I think one major takeaway is somebody had spoken, and my apologies for not remembering your name, is before sending out communication, really understanding what that company is going through so you can tailor your communication that really hits home and that will provide support. I think with the pandemic and everything going on, it's very important to show support and empathy and compassion, which I think that's what we primarily do, but it's even more important now to show our customers that we are here to support them. So I think that's one major takeaway, is really understanding and doing that research. And luckily for me, because I work for LexisNexis, I have a lot of data that I can search on companies and pretty much anything. I think that's one takeaway. And I think the action step is really communicating that with my team and making sure that they're doing the same things. so we can all kind of be on the same understanding and come as a united front, especially with what we do as an organization for so many organizations that are out there. So thank you so much. This has been a really great call. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. I appreciate that. How about maybe Alex Farmer? I'm going to call on you if you don't mind, and maybe give us your one takeaway, maybe one next step that you took away from today's conversation.
I was wondering, I think alphabetically, I don't know if it puts the videos alphabetically, but I always get picked on. Maybe it's because my webcam is so sorry. It's a standing desk that I've converted in my house. I'm sorry, folks, for the angle there. It's not my best, but so I thought was interesting. The big takeaway for me was, again, I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, but I think it was the first speaker in our breakout session was talking about executive outreach and that being a key thing for them, getting essentially assigning, I think it was 25 accounts to each of their C-level executives and having personalized email templates reach out, basically just to kind of ask how they could help. It kind of struck me, that's always been on, I think actually this person said the same thing, it's always been on your to-do list to kind of do a proper executive outreach program, and it's definitely jumped it up that person's to-do list and now has done the same thing for me. So, I mean, I think it depends on how long this thing goes on and how kind of high touch or low touch, how many customers you have, right? If it's can be a call or if you have to go big bang with exec outreach. But I thought that was a key point in our group to answer the question of how we're changing our approach to playbooks and if we're kind of flipping the script a little bit. I thought that was key. So thanks for picking on me, Jeff.
Yeah, no problem. Maybe Jennifer Kirkland, you're in my mode of view here. If you don't mind, maybe coming off mute and sharing maybe one of your takeaways from the session that you sat in on.
Yeah, I joined a little bit late, but as soon as I joined, it was really amazing to hear everybody say all the things that I've been kind of coming up with in my head and working to execute at Conversica and everything. And it was just really validating in that sense to hear that segmentation matters in regards to who your customers are. The scores are not going to be the same. I was in the scorecard breakout. The scores are going to be the same for every customer type. Scores are going to be different depending on where they're at in the life cycle. And your action items that you're going to be taking are going to be impacted by the level of maturity that the customer is at. And we were working on building this framework, and I just loved hearing that other people were operating in the same methodology. We're really driven towards having scale within our CSMs. We thought that was critical, and it was great hearing that.
Awesome. How about, I think I've got Anna, Allie, maybe, if you don't mind sharing from your session.
Yeah, so we in our business are actually working right now on crafting a health score. So the conversation in our session, I was in Jennifer's session as well, was super valuable and helpful in terms of just kind of validating that a lot of the things that we're looking at putting in and creating as part of our health score are the right things, or at least seem to be the right things based on the conversation that we had. So that was really super encouraging. And there was also some interesting conversation at the end, which is what I'm kind of taking. It's not so much a tactical takeaway as it is a philosophical takeaway to kind of take back to my leadership team to think more about. But we had some interesting conversation towards the end around health score versus customer value, and how do you think about the difference between the two, because health score is not necessarily indicative of the value that you're delivering to the customer. And so it's something that we've talked about internally at Avid Exchange as well. But there was just some interesting conversation and some points there that I definitely want to be able to explore further. Awesome.
Sarah Bocino, how about you?
Yeah, I was, we're getting a lot of our, from the same session. No worries.
No, that's fine.
I think it was really, again, to build off of what Jennifer said, really insightful to just kind of understand that everybody's considering health scores or launching it, but it's not the only thing that we can look at. In my organization right now, one thing that I heard today was aligning health to the success life cycle, right? And understanding that at different stages, we can at least prescribe where we can see customer health. And if we judge it, or if we're gauging it in those different stages, we can perhaps put some more rigor or playbooks or programs in place to help ensure that customers don't degrade, or that we're continuing to progress that health score. So that's something we're launching right now, or that we're frameworking out right now, is our success life cycle. So that was really valuable to hear that others are looking at that.
Perfect. What about, I think Diana, are you on as well? I think I saw your face when I was scrolling through here. Do you want to share a little bit maybe about what you heard?
Yeah, so a topic that came up was around when the POC leaves, and was actually a story that I shared about a POC leaving and us having to demonstrate value again, because the person that came up in is now at a leadership level, and we have to demonstrate the value again of our tool. And so somebody shared a story of like, having different goals depending on where we are in the chain. So for example, like, the champion would have a different goal compared to like the VP or something like that. So being able to speak to the value that you provide at each step of the way is important. So my goal now is to take this back to my team. And another thing that was shared was just having a one-pager of all the value that you've been providing. So documenting your value so that if something like this happens, you can quickly pull that up and read that off. So that's what I'm taking away.
Awesome. And then I know Dave Epperly, I'm going to call on you for a minute. It looks like you had a good message in the chat just about, potentially trimming some of your health score, given that we're going through this time. I don't know if you're still on or not, but do you mind maybe expanding on your point a little bit?
Yeah, hey guys, Dave Epperly here from Red Canary. We're a cybersecurity company. We're very high touch. We're also pretty nerdy. So over time, these things tend to get out of hand in terms of health score, forecasting, et cetera. More data, more data, more data. And we've really taken the opportunity over the last couple of weeks rather, to just run side-by-side comparisons to what we're currently running in terms of health scores and forecasting with a much pared down and simplified version. Makes life, frankly, much easier for everybody. And what we have found unanimously is that at least the CSMs kind of agree that those scores, those predictions are much more accurate from what they can predict and what they can see. So, we've had this concept and implemented over time, for at least the last 4.5 years. And I think that what this crisis has presented us with is the opportunity to go back to basics and really get right what the fundamental pieces of that health score are. That's it.
Awesome. Appreciate that. We've got about 3 minutes left. I know we always like to end these on time, but any final thoughts? How about Jim Jones? You got anything you felt like you can take away?
Yeah, so two things. First of all, the experience that some companies are having, customers saying, hey, I don't have time to talk to you right now, or call me in a month or whatever. Great indicator of churn and a great indicator of slowing of potential sales. So it's good to know we're not the only ones in that boat. The second thing is somebody said that they basically have stopped all new customer marketing, and all the outreach is going through the customer success teams. I can't stand the companies that are marketing to me on LinkedIn, privately or in a full message, across the board to everybody. Hey, we know things are bad with COVID. Let's talk about how we can help your business. And it's like, let's talk about how fast I can unconnect and block you on LinkedIn. You need to be genuine. You need to be authentic. You need to be there for your customers you have relationships with and say, how can I help you? Even if it's just to leave you alone for a few weeks.
Yeah.
And outbound marketing is absolutely inauthentic and tone deaf right now.
Well, I know we've got about 2 minutes left, so we'll try and make sure we get everybody out of here on time. But I appreciate everybody coming. I think again we tried the breakout rooms for the first time. Hopefully, you heard some diverse voices in the groups, and that everybody got some more value in terms of having more of an intimate, smaller group. So as always, we'll send out a survey right after. Hope to just gather some feedback, make sure again we can keep iterating and drive value. Thanks to Megan, Nils, David, and Jay for leading those sessions. Really appreciate you guys spending some time with us. And then, as we mentioned, we're excited about launching this community in terms of a platform between these sessions that we do on a weekly basis. So if you're interested in helping us get that off the ground, you'll see a little moniker in the survey that we send out. So please indicate if you'd like to help us do that. So thank you again. Hope everybody has a great Thursday, a good weekend, and hopefully we get to get outside and some fresh air.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Everyone.